everyone who is interested and wants to be a part of Colgate Athletics to be involved and to find their place and to find their voice in it. We believe that the more voices, the more diverse perspectives that we have at the table, the better long-term decisions we're going to be able to make. And we've also discovered that one of our hallmark strengths in Colgate, as many of you know as alumni, is the strength of our community when we're operating as a community. So we want to be an inclusive community of competitive excellence. And for us, what competitive excellence means is getting a little better every day in those sort of areas that we are striving towards. So, for example, in academic achievement, in athletic success, in personal and career development of student athletes, we want to get a little better every day. And we think that if we do that and we focus on that process, we're going to win championships. We're going to put our teams and our student athletes in a position to have incredible experiences. And so our virtues, and we've identified virtues as opposed to values, we just intend for these to be a little more actively lived. These are things that we think we can come to work every day or work from home every day and live them out, and that these represent us when we are at our best. And I'll talk to you more about what each of these means toward the end of our presentation. But just to give you a teaser there, to be thoughtful, driven, enthusiastic, cohesive, and bold. And just as a couple of examples of areas that we strive to be excellent in, academically, we are doing really, really well. I hope you all feel very proud of how your Colgate student athletes are performing. We have a 97% graduation rate. We had 43 perfect 4.0 GPAs over in 2019. And we had a record number of Rater Academic Honor Roll awardees, 505. On a given day, we have about 550 to 570 student athletes actively on rosters. And so to have that huge of a percentage reaching that honor roll status is a pretty significant achievement. We had 31 student athletes achieve 39 different convocation awards this spring. So they're doing great there. And then I keep trying to use my phone as a mouse. That's not working. There we go. Athletically, though our year was cut short, as you know, we had a really strong competitive year. We had all of these teams here listed: cross country, soccer, volleyball, swimming and diving, indoor track and field, women's and men's basketball, both hockeys, all participated in the postseason of their sport in the Patriot League or in the ECAC. We had both Matt and Ryan Baker win Coach of the Year honors. We had Ali Lau won Player of the Year, and let's see, Rapolis won. Or I'm sorry, Will Raymond won Defensive Player of the Year, and then we had a Senior Class Award top finalist in men's ice hockey. Really significant athletic awards particularly given that it was cut short. And then personal development is such a critical element of what we want to do. This is a screenshot. Coach Vaughn just this week had one of our esteemed alumni come back and share some of his perspectives as an entrepreneur. And we are just constantly working away at the career development of our student athletes. We've developed a new program this last year called Career Ambassadors, where every single team has a student athlete identified as the ambassador for their team. So they're making sure that everyone is getting the resources and getting engaged. And so making some really good strides there. So now I'm going to sort of stop my screen share for a second and bring us back up where we can see each other. And really want to toss it, Matt, I wanted to toss it to you to talk about just for a minute kind of how you've managed, given the interruption of the postseason for you, how you have helped manage your staff and your student athletes, and what that experience has been like this spring. Uh-oh. Matt? Is my connection not great?
No. Sarah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Did you get that?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, I heard you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've forgotten to press the space bar to mute myself. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a challenge, Nikki. It's been a challenge for sure, because there's there's no platform, there's no playbook, there's been no one who's come before us who's navigated these waters. So you have, nothing to look back on, or your personal experiences or experiences of others to try and do this. Obviously, our season came to an abrupt end. We knew we were going to be in the postseason. So, when we lost the championship, we didn't think that our season would come to an end. I think the first and most important thing for all of our coaches, but for our staff, was to get our guys home, have them there safely, know that they were in good hands, as we weren't going to be able to finish the semester with them, and make sure that they were going to be able to continue to study well. And so I'm really thankful for the athletic administration to help make that possible. And those guys got home. Our faculty was very accommodating to our student athletes and getting them settled in and into the online coursework that they were never used to. So that was first and foremost, to make sure that they could finish the semester well. Obviously, we're in the least rigorous part of our athletic season. And so for us, we talked about individual improvement with our guys. Basketball is a sport where if you're working individually, then you can help your team in the future. So even if it's something as simple as conditioning or strength training that you're trying to accomplish those things, I think our staff has been focused on finding ways to improve. Obviously, technology is so paramount in today's society that there's film study that we can do, and so many other things that, as we plan for the 2021 season, we're working on that. Obviously, things like this.
I called Claire before I called you, and issues I have to download an app.
Sorry, hold on one second.
To do
hey,
my
Matt,
phone.
hang on one second.
You may want to
I think we needed. Yeah, if you in order for Matt to speak, we needed to unmute folks. So if you don't mind muting yourself, that would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, sorry about that, Matt.
Screw it. I'm just going to exit the thing, and I'll.
Okay, I think we're good to go. I think we might have lost someone, but yeah, you're good. Yeah, yeah.
So again,
this is the downside to doing it this way. I think you're good, Matt.
All right. So I hope that answered your question.
I think you're good.
You're trying to figure it out day by day as we. Now my.
Okay. Well, that was actually great, and appreciate the insights there. And I know how you've talked about how important parents have been in terms of helping student athletes to readjust, and appreciate that perspective. Lindsay, turning to you, can you talk a little bit about your first-time head coach? You arrived here in January, and then everything happened. I'm also curious about the role that alumni have played thus far in your experience here.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. I don't know. Yes. Okay. So yes. My name is Lindsay Hokinson. Matt, I think he's famous enough around these parts, but I did want to introduce myself. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting many of you. So, but to Nikki's point, yeah, I think, I was telling Matt earlier today, there's a whole laundry list of things you prepare for as a new head coach that are going to be challenges and tribulations. And global pandemic was pretty far down the list of things that you're expecting as a first-time head coach. So it's been a really interesting 6 months. I feel fortunate on one hand that we're a fall sport and that we weren't in the midst of our season. So we didn't have any of our athletes losing competition. However, the spring season for me was going to be a very developmental and constructive period in regards to a transition of a new program. And so we did have to transition a lot of that into a digital space. And so we've been doing a lot of fundamental work over the internet, which has been really interesting for both ourselves as a staff and for our student athletes. To the second part of your question, it has been really cool to find a new and exciting way to connect with a lot of alums, probably even more rapidly than I would have had the chance to if we were kind of in the regular grind of the spring season. So I feel really blessed in that regard, that there's been so much outreach and care and concern from so many alums on checking in on our student athletes, checking in on our staff. And so it's been a really cool opportunity to get the chance to connect with a bunch of alums already and tons more on the docket. And so that in and of itself has been, I think, a silver lining to this current space that we're in, much like this sort of town hall where we get to all collectively join together. I think we've been able to get alumni together from across the country who haven't seen each other in quite some time. And so it's been a really cool new space to get to do some new and different things.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. It's been really great to have Lindsay and her staff here. I think my internet might be delayed. Can you hear me? I just kicked my family off, so hopefully that will get better. All right, so we're going to go back and continue. Just wanted to give you a little taste of sort of what, how things. Uh-oh, I see some funny faces. Okay, are we here? Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. All right. I'm so sorry. I've had really good luck with the internet until really critical moments like this. So I'm so very sorry for the frustration. But we're we planned this so that you could get a feel. Okay, great. We planned it just so that you could get a true experience of what some of our students are sort of dealing with and working through in this unusual time. So thanks both to Matt and Lindsay, and they'll be on the line and available for questions here in a little bit. So we're going to go back to the slides here, and I just want to talk to you a little bit more about kind of what some of the principles are for us as we are working through our thinking relative to how athletics might return, and how we've been planning both our activities through this period of time and as we go into the future. So first and foremost, of course, is health and safety of our student athletes, of our staff, of our faculty. Secondly is governance participation. And what that means is we are taking in athletics, your athletics faculty and coaches, staff are taking every opportunity possible to get engaged in campus governance and as well as league and national governance. And you'll get a little more information on that in a bit. But we want to represent the interests of athletics well. Third is alignment with campus. We are an elite academic institution that has a Division I athletics department. We're not the other way around. And so fortunately, we enjoy such a great relationship and an embrace by Colgate as a part of the Colgate University identity. But we are ensuring that we are staying aligned with campus in all that we do. Fourth, really prioritizing the scholar athlete experience. And what that means for me is that if there's a way that we can provide a competitive experience for our student athletes while they're also able to balance and engage fully in the full range of academic opportunities available through Colgate, we're going to be doing that. And that may look weird at times. League competition prioritization. What that means is that we may find ourselves in a space where we have to only play a league schedule, or and so we're just remaining open to that. Or we're going to hang on to league play as long as we can, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. But that will come first over some other sort of competitive interests. And then 6 is fiscal responsibility. And we'll talk more about our finances in athletics toward the end, but we've got to be responsible. We can't, I watched a presentation last night with some Power 5 colleagues, and they were talking about, things like totally rebuilding their concourses between now and August so that they could have the 6-foot distancing. And that's just not something that we're going to do, nor do we need to do. But we've got to be smart and fiscally. And then finally is to be very flexible, to remain flexible. As many of you know, information has come in at a rapid pace, and so sometimes our realities shift really quickly, and we're just trying to remain flexible and thoughtful and creative so that we can achieve these other principles. This next one, again, is just to kind of highlight the many ways that athletic staff members are represented across campus. And these are the, I would say, primary planning groups that are working we also have a one that's on here that we're not represented on, but there's an important planning group, is the remote learning task force that President Casey has established. But that's really focused on sort of teaching and learning methods to ensure that we're delivering an incredible academic experience regardless of the format that we start on August 27th. But the reopening task force, the budget and finance, emergency operations, on down the list, athletics is well represented across campus. We're also well represented in our leagues, both in the Patriot League and the ECAC, and at the NCAA level. I serve on 2 NCAA committees and have had an opportunity to at least have some input in their positioning in this. And so that's a good thing for Colgate. If you haven't had an opportunity to see these, it just may give you a better sense of some of the hurdles that we're looking at as it relates to actually being able to come back and restart athletics. These are, while the NCAA did, Mark Emmert did come out this week and indicate that the NCAA would not be taking a hard stance on creating an universal start date for all programs. In Division I, I think that actually encompasses all divisions. They have come out with these core principles for resocialization to sport, and I'm going to walk through those so that you can be familiar with them. First of all, there must not be a national directive that precludes resocialization from the federal government. State and local authorities need to have a plan in place, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but we have to have it can't be just to open up the doors and everybody comes in, but there needs to be mitigating structures and strategies and systems in place. A school's athletics departments must have a resocialization plan in place. So not just the state and local authorities, but also the athletics department. Athletics healthcare providers need to have access to PPE. And then we have to have the ability to work on a local and regional level to assess immunity, provide diagnostic testing, have surveillance system in place, and develop transparent risk analyses. So those are all pretty robust kinds of systems that need to be in place before, as we're thinking about resocialization of sport, getting back to playing sport on our campuses. For athletics, we are currently activating an athletics and recreation working group that is made up of folks in our department, some medical staff, and their charge is to develop a COVID-19 action plan for resuming varsity athletics and recreation on campus. The ACHA, the American College Health Association, has recently published a pretty good set of guidelines on the kinds of considerations that we need to have in mind as we think about coming back to campus. And so this group is going to be charged with, first of all, returning our varsity student athletes and wilderness adventure participants, then returning the rest of students to recreation, and then also return of fans. And so there are different considerations for all of those different groups. I want to talk a little bit about our financial management priorities. So while COVID-19 has impacted us in some really profound ways, one of those ways is sort of what the financial status of athletics is. We are so fortunate to be at a university who has had a very responsible approach to managing our finances. And so we are at this point going to be able to get to the end of this fiscal year with a balanced budget, which is not something most of our peers are able to say. So we're actually in a good place, relatively speaking. but there are going to be some changes that are going to be required of everyone as we get back to hopefully some semblance of normality. So as we think about the things that are priorities for us and working through our budgeting processes, first of all, it is to ensure that all sports get an opportunity to schedule and play a season. And so, like I said, that season may look a little different. We're at the Patriot League level, we're examining all sorts of models depending upon where we end up in the fall. Everything from it's practically normal to we're more regionalized to, we're only making day trips. You name it. There are lots of different scenarios we're exploring, but our hope is and priority is to ensure that student athletes have a chance to compete. Secondly, it's to utilize and retain our current athletic scholarship allotment. Colgate has made some concerted efforts over the years, and most recently in this last year, athletics had the opportunity to use 6 additional scholarships, which is a big deal because we're not fully scholarshiped. We have a number of programs that don't have scholarships. And so we want to use those well and make sure that we are providing as many opportunities for student athletes to come to Colgate and compete and be incredible students that we can. Thirdly, to maintain critical student athlete services. So we want to make sure that our sports medicine care is still excellent. We want to make sure that they have the academic support that they need. So those services that most directly impact student athletes, we want to try to preserve and maintain those. And then finally, preserve our current staffing. We have a really incredible group of people. We have amazing head coaches and very good coaching staffs. We have a very strong administrative team and not a whole lot of fluff. We're doing the analysis, but we don't have a lot. So our hope is to preserve current staffing as much as we're able to. J.S. Hope, our chief financial officer and senior vice president of the university, who is largely responsible for leading the charge to be in such a good financial position, has said a few times that the goal is for Colgate to look like Colgate on the other side of this crisis, and we think that these are some of the things that will help us to do that in athletics. The next slide I want to show you is just to give you a little better sense of how athletics in normal situations is funded, or in a normal year. So sometimes you'll hear coaches say, that they're responsible for raising 50% of their operating budget, and that is true. This is the whole budget of athletics. And so you'll see that 33% of our budget is from direct institutional support, unrestricted dollars. 32% comes from annual donations from folks just like you. And that helps us to run every year. 24% comes from NCAA and conference distributions and guarantees. Many of you have heard, if you haven't, but then because the NCAA men's basketball tournament was canceled, that is resulting in a huge hit to the distribution that the NCAA is able to give member institutions. We'll be receiving about 30% of what we normally would be getting for this fiscal year. So that's a big hit in that black chunk of the pie. And then guarantees are when we travel, when some of our teams travel and go play other schools, we get guarantee money. And so it's possible, depending upon how this plays out, that will also be hit. 6% is from endowment and investment income. Because of the conservative and responsible management of our endowment, that piece is pretty strong still. 5% is from tickets, royalty, sponsorships, parking, and licensing. And again, depending upon how things go this year, that chunk of the pie could also be impacted in a difficult way. So I share this with you in part just so that you can see how important it is that we have the strong support and partnership of our donors, of our alumni, of our parents, and even of our student athletes and staff. Let's see here. We're going to move on. So I want to just, again, as we moved through this time, I want to share a little more detail on what our virtues are, who we are, and how we intend to continue to lean in to our virtues and become an even better version of ourselves, even through this experience. So thoughtful. As we think of thoughtful, we define it as taking careful, reasoned, and inclusive action. And just as an example, you know, when the call has come from campus for volunteers to come deliver meals to students who are still here on campus, our staff has answered the call. They have been in so many of those boxes on the sign-up sheet, week in and week out, and they've been really fantastic. When the call came to pack boxes of our students' belongings to be able to send home, our staff answered the call. When we've been asked to sew PPE, we've done that as well. Can't hear? Can you guys hear me? I just saw Lindsay and Matt messing with their ears, so I worried that maybe you can't hear me. Okay, you're good. Our student athletes too have gotten in the game. This is Ben Sharf, a senior on our men's ice hockey team. He partnered with some pals and I think it may be his sister, and actually created an organization, a nonprofit organization called 6 Foot Closer. That and I encourage you all to go check this out and participate. It doesn't take much effort, and what you do is you just it pairs frontline workers with people just like us to record a quick 30-second video on our iPhone or whatever and send it in, and they send that to them just as a word of encouragement to them. And anyway, this is something that came out, I think, in the first 1 or 2 weeks of the pandemic, and really cool to see that thoughtful action. We also are driven. We are relentless, energetic, focused, and we are going to pursue courageous goals, even in this time. You may have seen, you know, our student athletes are doing a great job academically. Just this week, we were awarded, we received an APR, Academic Progress Rate Award. We were number 2 in the country, behind Columbia. And yes, I want to be number 1, but we had 19 of our teams get perfect APR scores. So we're going to keep driving academically and athletically. We are enthusiastic. And so we are about being passionate, being positive, and being fun, having fun. Athletics should be fun, and this should be a fun place and a fun way for people to engage with Colgate University. Our lacrosse teams, not long after all this happened, got involved with doing a virtual 5K, and donated some money to a foundation that raises money for cancer that was started by a lacrosse player. We've got student athletes who are still serving their communities across the board, and so really, really proud of them for that. Cohesive. We're close-knit, collaborative, and engaged in consistent teamwork. These are just a couple of images, screenshots from and many, some of you might find yourselves on these. We have had, I think 9 or 10 of our sports host virtual socials in the evenings, connecting some of our alumni with our current teams, and there is no better time, and we need you more now than ever to be cohesive, to be on our team, and to help us out to achieve the kinds of goals that you would have us to achieve. And then finally, bold. We are creative, resourceful, and fearless winners. We are unapologetically pursuing championships, and we want to be creative and do all that we can. And frankly, right now is not the easiest time to reach out and say and ask people to give. It's a tough economic time, and yet we believe in our mission so strongly, and we want to invite you to participate with us. And so you can do that by going to colgate.edu/MarchMania. And just to give you to stoke your competitive juices just a little bit, we do keep competitive standings. And our current standings, as of today, I think probably about an hour ago, we have in our former varsity athletes category, we have, frankly, our women are kicking some tail. So I challenge all of the men out there to get on board, but volleyball is in the lead among percentage of former varsity athletes giving. And then we've got ice hockey, lacrosse, soccer, good job, Lindsay, and field hockey following. And then amongst our current student athlete parents, women's ice hockey is leading the way. And we have men's rowing, women's rowing, softball, and field hockey behind them. I will also let you know that this is our list of current students who, and this is not quite such a pretty slide, but I wanted you to see that we have 5 of our programs who 100% of the students, student athletes in those programs have chosen to give even at this time to participate in March Mania. So they're getting some skin in the game, some more skin in the game. And then finally, I wanted to just share this slide with you. There are lots of ways that you can participate and how you can be a part of this team, continue to be a part of what we're doing. First of all, participate in March Mania. This is a participation challenge. At any level that you can participate, you will help us to close that gap in participants. And once we achieve 2,613 participants, we will unlock a larger gift, a challenge gift of $130,000, and that would go just such a long way for so many of our teams. So thank you for doing that, and then encourage a classmate to participate. Maybe who has never participated before, but think about who in your network might be ready to connect. Thirdly, become a season ticket holder. Our season ticket holder mailings have been a little bit delayed, and for obvious reasons probably, but we will be sending those out, and with the hope that we'll be having seasons. And but that's a way to really voice your support. And then finally, to become a Rater of Excellence. That's a higher level of a pretty elite level of giving. Brian Grady, bgrady at colgate.edu, can help you with that if you have any interest in becoming a part of that pretty elite group. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here again, and or not sharing my screen, if I can figure it out. Hold on, sorry. Let's see if I can get there. I apologize for the delay. Okay, here we go. And that's we want to now really open it up to your questions, and just hear from you, see what questions you have, and have some dialogue with you. So with that, Laura, I'm not sure if any have come through while we've been talking, but
yeah, I'll start with a couple that have come through, and then we can just, depending on if they come through the chat function or if people want to chime in,
yes,
in a minute. So let me start with the first one is actually directed towards Matt and Lindsay. How is recruiting going without face-to-face meeting right now?
Well, for us, Laura, it's
Matt and
been
Lindsay?
significantly different.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, all right. So for us, Laura, it's been significantly different. Obviously, we didn't have to do a lot of spring recruiting because of our commitments from the fall recruiting period. But as far as advanced recruiting, normally we would have student athletes on campus. We would have guys visiting, guys coming to our summer camps, being able to spend time with our current student athletes, and we haven't been able to do that. So we've been using this function, to be honest with you, to try and talk to families and speak with recruits, but we have found that it's kind of delaying our recruiting process, that those guys who normally would be visiting campuses in the spring and summertime just aren't doing so, and are in hopes of being able to do that, as soon as this, we can kind of change our status collectively.
Lindsay?
Yeah, much of the same for us. I mean, we're in this very interesting holding pattern because we don't necessarily feel comfortable advancing the conversation too far with players without getting to see them play in person. So based on the actual time that everything sort of shut down, a lot of our, I'm sure much like Matt, a lot of our summer recruiting events have all been canceled. So we're in a nice to meet you, but can't wait to see you play sort of holding period with a lot of our the 2021 class in particular.
The other thing that I would add, if I could, is our staff is kind of calculated and hopeful. A lot of the time that some of the guys that we have identified and we continue to recruit during this April and then in the July recruiting period, just off one good game that we've already seen them and know how good they can be. A school from a power conference or another school kind of jumps in the recruiting process, and now the kid goes from having a few options, a guy like Will Raymond, who we recruited, or Jordan Burns or Tucker Richardson. These are some of the guys that kind of fell into that category. They're no longer on the table, or they're being recruited by 25 schools. So again, trying to be optimistic. We're hopeful that maybe some of those guys will slip through the cracks and continue to like everything that they're currently liking about Colgate University.
That's great.
Thank you both. Another question is kind of a two-part question. Are you concerned about the impact of the shutdown of extracurricular and athletics in plans for the fall, regardless of whether schools are brick and mortar, virtual, or blended at the K through 12 level?
So if I understand the question, it's connecting sort of primary and secondary school openings with higher education.
I think
and
so.
I think one of the things that we often talk about at the cabinet level is that in all likelihood, Colgate is not likely to stand alone in whatever our decision is. And so, if there are restrictions, state restrictions on primary and secondary schools, it's likely that there may be some restrictions for higher education as well. For the most part, and when you look at some of the phased categories, education tends to fall into one category, I believe, in most cases that I've seen. So yes, I'm concerned about it, and that's part of why we're really honestly waiting about as long as we can to make a decision about. First of all, just to clarify, Colgate will be holding class starting August 27th. The question really is, the outstanding question is, in what format? The academic model that we have proposed and that was proposed and that and to which students are now registering has a variety of classes, some of which are in person, some of which are remote, some of which are and faculty have been encouraged to teach classes that perhaps you even start in person, but if things change and you have to shift, that they can be delivered remotely. So we're preparing for every possibility that we can, and waiting as long as we can in hopes that that being able to be in person as much as possible in the fall will remain a possibility.
Thank you for that.
And if I didn't answer the question clearly, please feel free to pipe in and ask it, or ask a different angle on it.
Another question, Nikki, is if kids are back on campus, but there's no travel allowed for sports, would we consider maroon-white games, inter-squad scrimmages for some of our sports, and football in particular?
Yes. We are, as I mentioned, one of our top priorities is to try to provide competitive opportunities for our student athletes. And there are so many questions that remain unanswered. If that were the scenario, for example, if we weren't allowed to travel, and so can't compete against others, how does that then impact eligibility for student athletes if we only played inter-squad games, that sort of thing. I suspect that there will be a lot of flexibility when it comes to that, but our hope is to provide whatever competitive opportunities we can, and the highest quality competitive opportunities we can.
Another one is Colgate looking at testing students and staff before opening up in the fall?
Yes, there hasn't been, we don't have a finalized plan for how that will go, but testing is a part of practically every sort of re-socialization plan that I have been a part of or seen or heard. Figuring out that testing is our hope is that testing advances considerably between now and then. Because if today were August 27th, we wouldn't be ready. Most institutions wouldn't be ready because of the cost of reliable testing and availability of reliable testing. However, our hope is that things will change significantly between now and, sorry, the wind has picked up, between now and August 27th, and that we will be in a position to be able to do more testing.
A broadcasting question. Is there a chance that we would start broadcasting on ESPN Plus for other sports like we do on hockey?
Yeah, that's a great question. For most folks, the ESPN Plus on the ECAC side of things has been a really positive kind of experience. There's a slight charge per month, but it's pretty high quality. Pretty high quality viewing. And so we are right now at the Patriot League in the process of vetting a number of proposals from various distributors. And so I'll simply say that yes, there is a chance that our other sports will start to go to ESPN Plus, but that decision has not been made or finalized. There are other folks that are in the running. There's Flow Sports has been in the game. CBS Sports has been in the game. So that we're continuing to vet those, and that was a pretty high priority prior to March 12th, as you might guess. That's been pushed back just a little bit down the priority list.
A follow-up or clarification to the earlier question about particularly the impact of high school sports, high schools not having sports potentially this fall. How do you see the impact, and this may be a question for Matt and Lindsay to weigh in on as well, the impact of future college athletes not having a senior season? Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly am curious to hear from Matt and Lindsay. I've wondered about that myself. How difficult is it to try to evaluate talent when they're not currently playing?
We're a bit unique in the soccer world that actually a lot of competitive soccer has actually sort of pulled away from the academic environment. There's a less of a strong tie to necessarily high school soccer, which I think in this particular circumstance benefits us because those leagues are doing what they can to find a way to reestablish. But I do anticipate it being much different. I'm sure, like Matt, I think these large leagues are finding creative ways to provide the same service in an alternative setting. So I assume there's going to be a big uptick in recording of games and virtual recruiting that perhaps didn't exist as such a large market before. So we anticipate, even if they are going to begin having sort of these larger scale tournaments, them finding ways to separate the fields and then videotape the games, and us not perhaps going in person, both from a budget standpoint and recruiting, as well as a safety perspective. So I think it's a little bit different for us maybe than it is for Matt, and the fact that the high school year and academic system setup won't necessarily reflect so much on our recruiting process, as will how those independent leagues start to handle the resocialization to sport as well.
Matt, anything you'd want to add?
Yeah, I think for our sport, it's really, I mean, it's very rare where there's a kid anywhere in the world, to be honest with you, not just in the United States, who doesn't have video. And so, I do think that, again, there's a niche here, an opportunity that our staff has talked about at really, it used to be 300 coaches would be sitting in the stands in July watching, 4 different courts, and everybody would see the same guy. And the rare occasion, that's how we found Jordan Burns, for example, who's first team all conference, and will be one of the best players in our conference if he returns next year. Is we found him originally on video, just scouring all the emails that we get and the video that you get. And so, without maybe live basketball, I think it's extremely unfortunate for the kids, for the students to miss out on those opportunities. Your heart breaks for them, but strategically, when it comes to recruiting, I do think there are going to be opportunities to be calculated and be decisive, and maybe be involved in some recruiting that we haven't been before.
Thanks a lot.
Nikki, you sort of touched on this earlier, but provided we have competitive D1 league play before a vaccine is readily available, are there plans being formulated for our athletes to social distance, for locker room facility social distancing, given the what you talked about earlier? Kind of are the what's going into that planning right now?
Yes, yes. The working group that I mentioned, the Return to Athletics and Recreation Working Group, will be working through those plans, and frankly, our Emergency Operations Center on campus has already started some of that work as it relates to ordering certain PPE in bulk, so that that is available for our students and student athletes and staff and faculty, and that working group will be getting going here, and in developing those plans. You know, some of it will be as straightforward as removing doors from certain rooms, so that you eliminate as many common touch points as you can. Of course, some of those plans will be about cleaning and sanitation. Some of it may be about practicing in shifts, or in smaller pods or groups of student athletes who stay together, so that that there could be easier contact tracing. The complexity of the plans that need to go into place is pretty significant, but we are not alone in working through what that could look like, and so yes, those things are being discussed, and you know, everything is kind of theoretical a little bit right now, other than, you know, and we're already pretty well positioned as it relates to, we have a sanitation system that we actually Coach Hunt had the great idea to get it fitted so that it could help the Hamilton Memorial Hospital to sanitize their PPE at a point in time when they were starting to run short on that. And anyway, so we've got some equipment where our campus partners have done a great job of getting ahead of that, and we'll continue to do that planning, but making smart, intelligent decisions about how much we're willing and able to financially invest in some of those things. Some of those efforts are removing doors, not that hard. Some of the other things are pretty expensive when you think about it. So it'll all be in balance.
A couple questions about Hamilton. Nikki, you, Matt, Lindsay, you're all Hamilton residents. How's the Hamilton community doing?
You know, it seems as though the Hamilton community is doing pretty well and being pretty thoughtful about the ways that they're adhering to the directives as it relates to social distancing and that sort of thing. I know that we've had some students back in town this last week to get their belongings, and so there's been some concerns there. You know, we certainly had our share of cases, and we've recently had an uptick in cases that was, I believe, fairly localized in a farming operation, but in the county we did have an uptick. We also have had, unfortunately, there were some deaths in our county. I believe what I have heard is that there were maybe 5 in Madison County. And so, you know, that's any kind of, when you have anyone who any amount of significant illness or loss like that, it's heavy, it's hard. I know many of you know Ruth Ann Lovelace was sick and with COVID-19, and she was pretty public about how difficult that was. And you know, we lost even, you know, at least one alumni that I'm aware of, and so that's hard, and it's difficult to walk through that. But the community that has been coming together, I have tried to order Oliveries at least 3 times and haven't even been able to get through. It's been so busy. So I don't know if that's a good indicator of how well they're doing, but they've been pretty busy. A lot of folks have have, I know, been intentional about doing as much takeout as they can. I think I've put on at least 5 pounds from flour and salt in the mornings. But I just saw Ruth Ann is actually on here. And so Ruth Ann, I don't know, would you be interested in speaking to that? This is unplanned. So, Laura, are you able to allow her to unmute? Maybe I can. No. Oh, shoot. We'll try, maybe we'll come back to you, Ruth Ann. I'm sorry about that. Oh, there we go. Okay, Ruth Ann.
Yeah, thank you. You know, it's interesting because the first 3 weeks of the breakout of the virus, I was very, very sick. So I was pretty much removed from the village in a sense, but we have a wonderful staff who really thoughtfully work things out so that we would have half a crew on furlough, half a crew working. Our biggest fear was like in the DPW, one person coming down and then all of a sudden everyone has it and then we have no DPW crew. But we were able to really adjust that way. I want to do a real shout out for Colgate. We are very worried about our shops and our restaurants and how they're going to survive through this. But as Nikki said, so many people are trying to support the restaurants and do takeout and whatever. I think it's very, very helpful. Colgate gave sort of a reprieve of rents for the shops that were in their buildings, which has been an incredible help. And I think most of you as alumni, or no, you wouldn't, as parents, when refunds were given to parents, there were suggestions that if they were able, that they may contribute those refunds in a few different ways. And one of them was to give to the Partnership for Community Development, which has developed a fund for the small businesses in town that people can apply for some help. And that is just a wonderful, wonderful thing that I think is pretty unique to Colgate, to think in terms of the village in ways that it can partner and be very, very helpful. But, you know, we're really worried right now. I think we're down to maybe no cases in the village. We had 2 up until about a week ago or this past week. We've had more than that, but I think we have none at this moment. But we're trying to be very, very cautious. Our police are told that if they see gatherings that are unsafe, they're to break them up. We're taking it seriously. We don't want people to be blasé about it and then be, in a sense, possible people to, spread the virus to others as they're in the community. So I think we're a responsible village. I see people really doing safe distancing and masks if they're out and about. Tomorrow is going to be a big test. We are going to open our farmers market, but it's under very, very strict guidelines. We can only have food vendors. There can be no crafts, no not-for-profit booths. So it will be probably less than half the size. Everyone will have to wear a mask. They'll have to walk in a certain direction. They will be monitored. And I'm desperately hoping that people will be responsible, because if not, we will have to close the market. And there are so few things we're able to continue right now that are, sort of community based, that I'm hoping that will work. Anyway, I'm sorry, I talked a little.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate, it's wonderful to get to, one, to have the support of our mayor, and also to be able to hear from you directly. So thank you, Ruth Ann, for being willing to be on the spot like that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Nikki?
Or were there other questions?
I don't know. Sure. This is Lloyd Jones. I don't know whether, when I watch the hockey games on ESPN or other, what I was noticing was very few students. Now, I know there's a lot more activities and maybe more people studying, But what I'm seeing is low numbers of, um, you know,
Student fans.
well, students or town or a lot of open seats. And then I get a notice that you're allowing beer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I am a 52-year-old graduate. I graduated in '67, and hockey manager, and father was a hockey All-American. And I look at all that and I say, wait a minute, do we open this to the young kids in town and don't charge them anything? My answer is yes, because my answer is while we can get the exposure, let's get the exposure for Hamilton and surrounding area at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to see an empty seat,
Yeah.
and I don't like to see, or I don't think I like to see the push for filling seats by providing a beer distribution.
Sure.
It may be
Sure.
a small business, but how's that working out?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to respond to that. Well, so the good news is that one of the elements of that is that actually attendance was up this year, and the facility that we built is beautiful and amazing, and it also has a concourse level where people love to stand and congregate, and
Right.
so it's one of the slightly frustrating things about it is that it's really hard to get a sense of what the actual attendance is because folks aren't coming down into their seats. And so, of course, our hope is that it just gets so crowded up there that they have to come down, and we're doing all sorts of new initiatives to try to encourage students to make Colgate athletics and coming as fans a part of their experience again. And it's not just a problem that we're experiencing. Across the country, student attendance is a concern. However, we think we can tackle it, and we're starting this summer. For example, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing an outreach to all of our new incoming students to help them to see all the different ways they can participate. As it relates to the sale of beer and wine, that was something we took under real close consideration. There's been a fair bit of demand for it over the years, and we hadn't done it. The facility was built to be able to do it. And when I got here, one of the things that I noticed that I wanted to address was the inconsistency in the way that that we were sort of handling alcohol on our campus. We were having some events across campus where alcohol and beer were served, but we were coming over to athletics and it wasn't served. And really our goal is the research is pretty clear on alcohol consumption with the college student population. Abstinence messages are not typically successful at all. In fact, when you look at the research for other institutions that have implemented alcohol sales in their athletics facilities, they've seen a decrease in the number of binge drinking related incidents and the sort of irresponsible use, because students don't necessarily feel like they have to get, to binge before they come in, if they're going to come in at all, and then maybe go out and drink anyway. So actually our goal was not so much to attract them there, but to be able to provide a consistent message and a responsible drinking message. So there are a bunch of parameters around our policy. For example, you can only purchase one drink at a time. We have really strict review of IDs and that sort of thing. So, and the good news is that we had no increase at all in alcohol-related incidences. We actually had less cleaning problems, which we expected that might become an issue. And we did actually have better attendance this year. So our intention next year is to continue the pilot. And so it's not a permanent decision, but it's a pilot program. And so far we've collected some good data, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you for the question. So we are running a little bit over now. We still have quite a few questions coming in. I might suggest, Nikki, that I can provide my email address in chat, and then if there are additional questions that we didn't get to, folks can feel free to email me, and we can address those questions after the fact and offline.
That sounds good. That sounds great. I'm sorry that we didn't have a chance to get to everyone's question, but so appreciate everybody coming and being a part of what we're doing. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. So Laura, you're going to provide your email in the chat. Is that right?
Yes, I missed it.
Very good. And one last thing, if you would participate in March Mania, it would be a huge, just a big thank you, I guess, to all of you who participate. It'd be very meaningful to us. And thank you so much for your interest, for continuing to serve Colgate in so many different ways, for the ways that you connect with our student athletes, and the ways that you continue to just represent Colgate and make us proud in the things that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us. If there's interest, we'll consider doing this again sometime in the future, and we can chat some more. And Matt and Lindsay, thank you so much to you for joining us as panelists, and Laura for arranging it and facilitating our Q&A.
Matt, did you
I don't want to interrupt, Nikki. I appreciate it, but I see our participants slowly dwindling, so I want to get this in before too many of them leave. Coaches are still trying to coach. It's obviously very different. Our student athletes are still trying to do their very best to learn and be the best athletes they can be. I think a heavy burden has fallen on administrators, and going into my 10th year here now in Hamilton and at Colgate, I'm just so proud to be working at Colgate. President Casey has been transparent and communicative to the faculty and the staff and athletics, and Nikki has just done everything to, I call them standards. She uses another term, but she's modeled that every single day of this difficult time. And, from little things like including our families and our children on a weekly talent show with our full division, and just the head coaches and the guidance that she's given us. I think we're all super fortunate, and you should be proud as alums or parents or whatever your status is to have her in charge of our department and working as hard as she possibly can at all hours of the day and night to do our very best through this difficult time. I'm certainly very proud to be partnering with her through this difficult time. So thanks to you, Nikki.
Thank you, Matt. That was very kind of you. Thank you. All right.
Couldn't agree more. She's between her and President Casey, there's been a massive diminishing of us having any questions or concerns about the direction we're headed. We're in safe hands, and we feel really good about having somebody in the room fighting for us and fighting for athletics and its role in this ever-changing society. So we appreciate everything that she does on a daily basis, and I hope it's clear, obviously, in this short hour, just how thorough and thoughtful they've been through this whole situation. So
thank you so much. Thanks to everybody, and I'll look forward to seeing you hopefully in the fall or sometime in Hamilton soon. Take care. Thank you.